Hello, Assalamu alaikum. It's a great honor here for me to stand before you today in this distinguished event. And I sincerely thank Ahliya and Woxen universities for organizing this event. Special thanks to Dr. Maya Safar for her invitation. My speech will explore innovative dialogues in sacred architecture, affinities and inspiration in Islamic design. Perhaps there is overlapping with Professor Ali Abdurraouf in my thoughts here. But why discuss sacred architecture in a conference on innovation? Sacred spaces are the most enduring architectural landmarks in many of our countries, shaping public perception, especially among our architecture and interior design students. And as mentioned also by Professor Ali, the typology of mosques has largely resisted the societal changes sweeping through our cultures. And perhaps the sacredness of their function has been ingrained over the centuries into their morphological systems, which over time became sacred in the collective and conscious. We cannot think a mosque without a dome. We cannot think a mosque without a minaret and without arches. And I often encounter recurring challenges with my students. They often confuse culturally engaged buildings, or they confuse it with historical forms to express in their designs. They generally overlook their deeper meaning, the historical function and the technical innovation of their times. Islamic civilization was defined by openness and adaptability, qualities essential for reinterpreting sacred architecture today. A deeper understanding of this legacy can inspire designs that respect historical context while embracing contemporary innovation and technology. My engagement with sacred architecture is not just theoretical, but it is also deeply personal. Growing up in Kairouan, a city steeped in Islamic heritage, as it is the first Islamic city in the Maghreb, also named the city of the 300 mosques, I was surrounded by architectural expressions of faith and identity. These spaces shaped my perception of how architecture can transcend time, carrying historical and spiritual significance. Here we have the majestic and eternal mosques of Aqba ibn Nafi', the peaceful mausoleum of the Prophet companion Abu Zam'a al-Balawi, and the countless white domes and the interplay of light and shadow of these spaces became my first lessons in sacred architecture. I began to see how architecture is not just about form, it is about meaning. How space can embody both spiritual and communal values. And this early exposure to sacred architecture naturally led me to explore these ideas in my own work. My first lessons in sacred architecture, I began to see how architecture is not about form, but about meaning, how space both spiritual embody both spiritual and communal values. And through different readings in history, in symbolism, in spirituality, and what started as academic exercise, it became soon a lifelong research focus. Through my work supervising master's and PhD thesis on sacred spaces, and I have continued to explore the evolution of sacred architecture. And my academic research and collaborations, particularly with Italian architects, enriched my perspective, especially regarding the intersection between Islamic and Christian sacred architecture. And it reinforced a critical concern. How do we engage with historical Islamic heritage today? As I said, too often we are reproducing the forms of the past without fully engaging with their deeper meaning or the openness that once defined Islamic architecture and Islamic civilization. Historically, the flourishing of Islamic architecture, it thrives through dialogue with diverse civilizations and communities and religions. And understanding these affinities and influences, it can help us embrace modernity without mimicking the past. It allows us to recognize sacred architecture as a living dialogue. It allows us also to promote collaborative, interdisciplinary approaches that draw inspiration from diverse traditions to address global design challenges. And in today's interconnected and fragmented world, marked by migration, war, extremism, architecture, it plays a crucial role in fostering dialogue and inclusivity. And here I would like to recall the words of Amin Maalouf. It is often the way we look at other people that imprisons them within their own narrowest allegiances, and it is also the way we look at them that may set them free. And this applies to architecture. How we design and interpret spaces can either reinforce divisions or foster unity. This brings us back to the question of how diverse cultures and religions have influenced Islamic sacred architecture over time. And to truly understand its evolution, we must focus on its affinities and shared influences rather than isolating differences. And this is a deeply complex topic that I will go through only some key aspects. Islamic architecture evolved within regions influenced by mostly by Christianity, reflecting shared spiritual foundation and a common pursuit of expressing the sacred through built forms despite doctrinal differences. And Early Christian and Islamic sacred spaces shared principles of simplicity and adaptability. And the Prophet Mosque here in Medina, like the early Christian worships spaces, was initially a simple functional gathering spaces, and over the time religion institution shaped these sacred spaces into a more defined typologies. And architectural forms evolved through exchanges between culture. Here we have two examples of St. Peter Basilica and the Mosque of Kairouan, and we can see many similarities. Also, the Roman Basilica served as the foundation for early churches. The iconic building here of Hagia Sophia stands as the prime example of the blending and at least three significant religions and architectural tradition. We have the pagan space of the Pantheon, and the new monumental space was constructed to serve as the temple of Christianity, and then later Islam used this monument as a mosque and then as a model for all the mosques constructed by Ma'mar Sinan. Also, we have here the Mosque of Cordoba that exemplifies the layering of sacred spaces. We have here the great mosques of Damascus that on a former Christian built in a former Christian basilica, and is considered as one of the most significant achievements of the Umayyad that influenced the later mosques. Also, light, both natural and artificial, it have a profound significance, symbolic significance in religious architecture. We have many examples. I have to go quickly because I am asked to go quickly, just to show the examples of the similarities, the affinities between the different spaces. Also, there is the liturgical elements, both in Islam and Christianity, are structured around key elements. Also, churches align sacred elements internally. And we have here also an importance of the spoken word in both traditions. Here, the example of the altar as a central element is essential in Christianism and the Kaaba in Islamic architecture. Also, water is universally associated with purification. In the mosques, it's associated with ablution. And in Christianity, also, it's for baptistries and the purification. We have also similarities in ornamentation. We can see it in many examples. Also, the interior space in Islamic mosques and churches are very similar, and we can see these affinities and similarities and influences in these examples of interior space. Also similarities in minarets and bell towers. Also, I would like here to come to the modern times. For modern times in contemporary architecture, as mentioned and discussed by Professor Ali, the removal and the reinterpretation of traditional elements such as minarets, the introduction of a new international architectural style, it has deepened similarities between sacred spaces across different religions. And we have the architecture and art, interior design engaged in a more dynamic exchange to foster more compelling dialogue and more creative cross-pollination. And I have to talk here about a visit to Saint-Cloud Mosque. We were a group of architects from different and diverse religious backgrounds gathered to visit the space. And despite our different beliefs, the profound sense of sacrality in the mosque was felt deeply by all of us. And it highlights the universal power of architecture to evoke shared spiritual experience. We have here, there is no differences between this mosque of Al-Ishrad in Indonesia and the Tadaw Underwater Church. Also here, example of a project in Abu Dhabi and the San Jose Maria Escriva Church in Mexico. We can find also similarities in this mosque by Björk Ingel and this mosque by Massimiliano Focas. Here also, we have also transparency and the reinterpretation, representation of the immaterial. It's a key concept in contemporary projects like this example of the reconstruction with wire reconstruction in a church and in an installation in Abu Dhabi. And we can also here mention biophilic design, some affinities and similarities, and how in modern architecture we can have these cross-pollination and similarities across these different examples. And here also there are few examples that have tried to find a common place of worship for different religions. That's this House of One in Berlin or the Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi. Here, I would like just finally before concluding, I would like to share this example of educational initiative we went through in the National School of Architecture in Tunisia to foster more dialogue. And instead of proposing a mosque to the student, we proposed a shared house of, and then instead, students started in the beginning didn't understand because student and the young generation sometimes are not open to other. And this exercise helped them to go more try to embrace the challenge and to try to bring together these religions and try to understand more these religions. What I would like to say to conclude here that sacred architecture in its diverse forms and traditions reflects humanity, universal research for the divine, and whatever through historical affinity or contemporary innovation or biophilic designs, these spaces continue to evolve while they are preserving their essence of spirituality, unity, and reverence. And I would like to finish with this quote: I'm in love with every church and mosque and temple and any kind of shrine because I know it is there that people say the different names of the one God. Thank you.